It's Tools Tuesday, and I'm showing off a new feature that was recently added at Unabated.com. Intelligent betting tools, and that's market-based projections. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blenderhead, Blender HD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, hit that thumbs up button. Help me out on the channel. Subscribe if you're new here. As you know, Unabated is one of the top tools that I use in my sports betting success, especially in prop markets, right? You can go to unabated.com, sign up there. I don't get any affiliate money or anything like that. Feel free. Go use the same tools that I use. And alongside the Roto-Grinders NBA projections, typically I upload, I've showed a video before about uploading custom projections into the Unabated prop simulator, right? So it'll give you mean projections, right? So this is, I've uploaded for whatever day this is in NBA, uploaded my projections, and then I could simulate, change and convert the mean projections into medians, right? Because that's what the sports betting lines are, right? And it'll show me in the little green numbers where the edges lie compared to my mean projections and the sports books median numbers. So we can go here. It's simulating it all out. I'm just, press the button. So all that comes through. I could sort by, the best line, right? I could see here Derek White over 3.5 plus 115 on BetMGM, 29% edge compared to my mean projection of 4.24 rebounds, right? So this is if you have a custom projection source, if you're building your own model, if you're aggregating from other sources, right? And then you can compare them to the lines. But one of the issues that, using a projection model is that a lot of times you'll find that your numbers may be significantly off market, right? Right across the board, right? Especially in NBA, right? They have this, Unabated has this for NBA now. They'll be adding other sports in the future. A lot of times, common sense would say that maybe you're not as smart as the market. Prop markets aren't that liquid, right? So they don't necessarily operate necessarily in the same dynamics as sides and totals. There not necessarily is a sharp book for props, but you could use the market as a way to find like stale numbers and lagging indicators, and also to curtail the edge numbers that you see in your own projections to be a little bit more regressed to the market. It's a little bit much more of a blunt way of regressing to the market. So essentially what the market-based projections on Unabated do, if I switch over to this, right, market-based projections, I go here, it says Derek White 3.4 rebounds, right? So what this is doing is it's taking the median numbers across all the sports books, not necessarily the ones that just, I have available to me, right, across all the sports books, and converting a consensus median into a mean for you to do everything in reverse. And what this can do is show you what books are kind of lagging behind as far as moving their numbers more towards the market. Where's the most off market number? Now, based on Unabated's, behind the scenes, the consensus number that they show here in their market-based projections isn't necessarily an average of just all the sports books. We have 30 sports books. We're just averaging it all out. It's like, no, it's prioritizing sports books that have moved more recently. And that's due to the fundamental nature of markets. And remember, big caveat here, prop markets are not necessarily, they don't necessarily work in the same way as sides and totals markets. The liquidity is lower. There's a big difference between, a sports book that's taking $100 bets on props and taking $10,000 bets on sides and totals. But it can give you some insights, right? With the fact that if a number moves on a sports book, it's most likely because new information, new action has come in. It is moving more market-based than a sports book that is not necessarily moving their numbers in tune with the rest of the market. So we can see here, using the market-based projections on rebounds, I'm sorting here by best line, right? We could see a Kelly Olynyk, for instance. We could see here, we just sort by Olynyk and just show this out over here. We're showing that based on the market, in total market, the mean projection based on the market would be 7.23 rebounds. And converting that back to a median again, it shows here that DraftKings under 7.5 at minus 120 has a 5% edge on the market, right? Now, if the market was, very liquid, like sides and totals, you could theoretically use this in the same way in sides and totals and bet like top down, right? You could say it's like, oh, DraftKings has lagged behind. We see here Caesars under 7.5 at minus 154. BetMGM under 7.5 at minus 133. Right? Bet365 under 7.5 at minus 130. FanDuel has moved the number down under 6.5 at plus 114, over 6.5 at minus 146. So what Unabated is doing is automatically calculating the value of one rebound and showing you the edge compared to the market, quote, the market. And based on this, DraftKings is behind on the rest of the market for this Kelly Olynyk rebound number. Does that mean necessarily that you have an edge, a 5% edge at DraftKings? No, it doesn't, right? If we go and click and go to our custom projections, right? I go here, 7.79 rebounds is the Roto Grinders' current projections here. We could see here that it actually shows a minus 9% edge, right? Based on our origination, right? Using a model, whether it be your own, publicly available ones that are trustworthy, that you have found success with. And it turns out that compared to our custom projections, DraftKings actually has the worst number. It's the worst number because our mean projection, custom in our model, is 7.79 rebounds. So when people think of these market-based projections, they go, oh, I'm going to bet top down. Turns out that based on my Roto Grinders model, that DraftKings actually has the worst number, even though the under 7.5 at minus 120, right, compared to the rest of the market, looks good. But really, the market is more off. The market-based projection is more off than our origination, assuming our form of origination is more accurate than the market, which in prop markets tends to happen way more often than sides and totals. Okay. But if we're going to use our custom projections, right? One of the caveats of using your own projection model is that you're just one person. You're just using one model, right? You're a small part of the overall sports betting landscape. And it's hard to think. I mean, unless some people have very high opinions of themselves, right? Unless people think they're geniuses, right? I could build a model that has 22% edges on the market. It's probably not true, right? We see edges here. I could go through my custom projections, right? Right? If I'm going to switch over to custom projections here, just on rebounds, right? And I simulate this out, right? It says Emmanuel quickly, I had a 27% edge. It's unlikely to be true, betting over 5.5 plus 143, right? My edge is probably smaller. Maybe it's still positive, but it's smaller than that. Now, if you were ascribed to some form of Kelly betting, I mean, you'd be betting way too much on this, right? I got a 27.83% edge, right? So now if you're an experienced prop bettor, you kind of take these numbers with a little bit of a grain of salt. So maybe, even though you have your mean projection at 5.91, right? The market would say, if we just highlight this quickly one, right? We go back to the market-based projections. The market has it at 5.2, right? Which gives you much, much less of an edge, right? It still shows an edge, actually, on the over 5.5 plus 143 on Caesars, but only a 2.97% edge compared to the rest of the market. So what a lot of people do as a blunt form of regression in the unabated screen, you could blend projections together. You could aggregate them together. So if you have a projection source, so I have my custom projections in here, you could weight your custom projections with the market-based projections to make that's kind of like trim down those edges. So let's say I want to weight half and half. So in my mean projection that I'm going to simulate, half of it is going to be weighted towards the custom projections that I have from Roto Grinders, and half are going to be whatever the market is, right? With the more recent movement being weighed more heavily into that projection. So I'm going to close this out here. I'm going to go to the blended projections. So you can see here 5.56, right? We saw before our custom projections has it at 5.91. The market-based projections are 5.2. So blending the two together, we're going to give a blended projection of 5.56. And then I simulate that out. And instead of showing a 27% edge or showing a 2% edge, it's going to be about right in the middle. So 14% edge. So you could do that and blend all the, you see, I blended using the blended projections on all these rebounds. I could simulate those out, weighing half of the projection with my Roto Grinders model and half of it with whatever the, the market consensus is, to kind of trim down. And maybe those 5% edges actually turn into like negative EV. And the 20% edges turn into 7% edges. And you could be a little bit more realistic, right? A little bit more realistic. Give you a little bit more insight on where your perceived edges and how much of a perceived edge that you indeed have. Now, blending these projections together, you don't have to do this. I mean, if you're experienced prop better, you could just use your custom projections and just know that, hey, if something shows as a 40% edge, right? If I show something in my custom projections as a 40% edge, and the market-based projection shows it as nothing, like, it's probably not a 40% edge. It's probably not, right? But if you show that you have a 40% edge on something and the market just, for some odd reason, is ridiculously off, and there's one book that still has some stale number, especially in NBA, where guys could be in, guys could be out, you get injury report news, right? It's quite possible that using the market-based projections, you could find books that some guys in, some guys out, they haven't taken the game down, they haven't moved the numbers, and the rest of the market, maybe FanDuel has moved, DraftKings has moved, Caesars has moved. But BetMGM, is still hanging some 5.5 rebound number when the rest of the market has already gone up to 8.5. Now, obviously, you want to jump on that as quickly as possible, right? Because that's probably going to move. But you could use the market-based projections in order to do that. Another use, and I think an extremely good use of market-based projections, is with the DFS Pick'em tool here on Unabated. And this is specifically for the peer-to-peer contests where the numbers don't move. We see this on DraftKings Pick6. And you'll probably see this on Prize Picks Arena and Underdog. They'll have a version of it. We should probably see more of these types of peer-to-peer games where your goal is to, you have to pick 6 static bets, right? They come out with it in the beginning of the day, right? And they're not going to move. So these rebound numbers, these points numbers, they're not going to move. That 5.5 is going to stay there no matter what. No matter who gets ruled out in the game, whatever, it's going to stay there. And obviously, as the number moves in the market, you get more and more value on that pick. Caveat on top of that, obviously, I'll be talking about this in plenty of videos on the channel, that the more value in those games, because they are peer-to-peer in nature, the more value that a certain prop shows means the more people that use it, which means your payout by hitting that as part of your Pick6 card, the value of it goes down because you're going to be sharing money and sharing a pick with so many other people. So I could go here. I could just use 100% market-based projections, right? I go to DraftKings Pick6, right, on this given day that I'm using the example. And I can go right on Unabated. I go to next. And it'll show me, look at all these edges, right? Because the market, we see here Grayson Allen, the market-based projection, right? Converting all of the median numbers for the sports books, prioritizing the ones that have moved the most recently. The mean based on the market is 13.9. Yet on DraftKings Pick6, the number is 15.5. Right? You can't get 15.5 in the market. I mean, you can't. If we go back, let me go to the prop screen again. So we're going for a point. Grayson Allen points. Let's go to Grayson Allen points. Especially for those that have never played like DraftKings Pick6 before. It's not available in as many states currently. So I go to points and I go to Grayson Allen. Right? Nowhere. Look, 13.5, right? Right? You get 13.5 minus 130 on the over. Right? But the number on Pick6 is 15.5. Right? Because that's what it opened at. Right? It went down. The market went down on Grayson Allen points. But on Pick6, the numbers don't move. So do I even need a projection source in order to play DraftKings Pick6? Now, obviously, like I said before, prop markets don't necessarily, they could, but they don't necessarily work the same way as sides and totals markets due to the lower liquidity, the lower proclivity of sites to take in sharp action on props. So this 13.9 market-based projection is maybe not the most efficient. Numbers can move even against you, right? Some release happens. Some Twitter account with 200,000 followers, tweeted out, take the under 15.5 on Grayson Allen. And now all these books are moving because they're getting, hundreds of bets, $20, $100, whatever bets on this. And they're just trying to play defense going, I don't know if there's a reason for this, but we just want to play it safe and move the number. Your projection could have him for, your model could have him for 18 points, and it would be better off to take the higher on this specific prop on DraftKings Pick6. But we go under the notion that maybe the prop markets are at least somewhat market driven, have some market dynamics that if you're going to play a game like DraftKings Pick6, load in the market-based projections that Unabated will give you, right? As part of the Unabated Essentials package is the lowest tier. So you could sign up at unabated.com. And then, hey, you could do this. You could do this, 10 minutes before game time, right? You got some games that are later and they do have late swap for Pick6, right? And you go here. It's like, how do I put together the largest edge based on the market of 6 picks? So I could just go through it. I could just, I'm going to take Grayson Allen. Draymond Green, higher than 4.5 assists. The projection based on the market is 5.5. So, okay, give it to me. Right? Trey Jones, Pick6 has it at 6.5. His market-based projection is 5.9. The betting markets have moved since these props have come out for Pick6. And he's just you could put the top ones together. Now, obviously, in Pick6, maybe there's some form of correlation or leverage or some game theory to this. But in general, you could go here. Okay, here are my picks. I'm using it based on the market. I don't need to know anything about basketball. I don't need to know anything about NBA in order to do this, right? The market-based projection is coming from the market, right? I don't need to download projections. I don't need to do any of that type of stuff, right? I'm just using it based on what the current sportsbook numbers are. And I'm generating a card that naturally has closing line value, right? Because you're betting, you're still able to bet the openers. You're able to pick 6 out of the openers. So even if you're not going to use the market-based projections to blend your projection source, because you already kind of take that into account as it is, and even if you're not going to use it as some form of top-down betting, which I'll say the caveat, with a big asterisk, that going into the NBA prop screen, using the market-based projections, and then going to points, I mean, you're probably not going to find, many lagging books. Obviously, when there's more information asymmetry, the times where, starting lineups come out and injury reports happen and everything like that, you may be able to find that. But going through this and seeing like Duncan Robinson, this is 3% off of the market. That, getting closing line value in props isn't the be all end all, because the numbers may not move based on actual market dynamics. It may just be defense from, some release or some, head fake action, some whatever. It's lower limits, right? It's quite possible on certain books that a $500 bet could move a prop. And then other books start copying that number. They're starting getting action because people are betting the off number, and then they're moving just to play defense, even though there's no really discernible actual liquid-based reason that it moved, right? So if you're going to go and say, okay, I'm going to bet top down and go, oh, Dorian Finney-Smith over 9.5. It's quite possible that the sharp number is the FanDuel number, right? It's quite possible. We see here with Dorian Finney-Smith, right? Here, based on the market-based projection, we have 10.86 points. And it's showing that, FanDuel is behind. It's quite possible that FanDuel's ahead, right? Have you thought about that? It's quite possible. And a lot of times FanDuel takes a decent amount of money on props, right? I'm not calling them the sharpest books, but in some markets, they may actually have the sharpest number. So you may be looking at this thinking that you have a 7% edge. You don't. It's quite possible that taking the under 10.5 at the best place, right, at like minus 110 may be the best, because they haven't moved, right? FanDuel is the first to move, and it just so happens to be the rest of the market is way behind, right? So don't get caught in it. I mean, look, I'll do the same thing before. Market-based projection. Go to my custom projection, has it at 10.47, right? Even lower. So you can see here that there's actually an edge on Bet365 based on my Roto-Grinders projection, right? That it turns out that the FanDuel number may actually be the sharp number, the quote unquote, the sharp number. So be very careful, very, very careful going in, especially if you're a top-down bettor. You've been doing this for sides and totals for quite a long time in other sports or anything, but you're going to NBA, and I hope this comes out for MLB, NHL, other sports, football, college basketball, whatever. Just be very careful thinking that like, oh, this is look how much CLV I got in props, and then you look and you go, why do I have a negative 6% ROI? Why is this? Why is this? After 5,000 bets, you have a negative 6% ROI doing this. And you go, okay, maybe top down betting and props is not necessarily as advantageous to your bottom line as you may think it is. You still need some form of origination, but I still think that using the market-based projections you could find the stalest numbers and maybe investigate that, because a lot of times the stalest number may actually be the best number, and sometimes it's the sharpest number. But using that could help you identify plus EV opportunities. And if you want more of that type of advice on finding those plus EV bets, subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button if you found this helpful. Post your comments if you have any questions about the unabated tools. I can answer. I used them all, right? This is what I use myself. I'm not just like shilling this because they're giving me a kickback. This is literally what I use. So if you have a comment or question, post them below. I'm also in the Unabated Discord, so you could always hit me up there in like the props channel or something. And yeah, so I'll be back next Tuesday for another tool tip using the intelligent betting tools at unabated.com.